I had an in-depth conversation with Stevie Wonder last night, who is,
I love Stevie Wonder.
again, for the serious question. I had an in-depth conversation with Stevie Wonder last night, who is requesting
Okay.
a meeting with the president. He's very concerned about the Black agenda falling along the wayside and issues like laws of 50 years ago that are now being abolished or gutted, to include issues like the Voting Rights Act, what happened in Arkansas last week, affirmative action, Supreme Court, we've seen it, ban on books, and he's also even brought up issues of the Congo and the lack of information from the White House. Is the White House amenable to sitting down with Stevie Wonder, who has met with presidents throughout history, to include Ronald Reagan? He was one of the major impetus for getting the holiday for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And also, he was one of those who worked with President Obama in his efforts to become president. Is this president amenable to meeting with Stevie Wonder, who has these concerns?
And you're right, April. What you just laid out in your question is incredibly important. And so we take that very, very seriously here. Can I just say a couple things about Stevie Wonder? He is indeed an icon who's made tremendous contributions to the civil rights movement and also voting rights. And as you just listed out, he was one of the main voices in getting Dr. Martin Luther King Day. And we appreciate that. We appreciate his brilliance, and we appreciate what he's been able to do on behalf of the community. So I can't, as far as a meeting with the president, certainly I'm not aware of any meetings with Mr. Wonder or any scheduled meetings, and I don't have anything to announce, obviously, at this time. But I also want to say that on the president's first day in this administration, he has taken this very seriously as it relates to what we're seeing, as it relates to racial inequality. He called it one of the four major crises that we have to deal with as a country when he stepped into office. And one of the things that and I know you've covered this very closely, he signed an executive order to initiate a whole of government approach to implementing his equity agenda. And a couple of things that he did. He worked to protect the right to vote through executive actions and continued to call for legislation. Took executive actions on police reform when congressional Republicans would not sign the George Floyd Justice Policing Act. And so he's taken actions to make sure that we are protecting the right to vote. He spoke to the affirmative action, what we saw SCOTUS do, and he spoke to that and he said, and I'll quote, "We should never allow the country to walk away from the dream upon which it was founded. The opportunity is for everyone, not just a few." And he stands by those words.
I'll follow up on that.
Yeah, sure.
But Stevie Wonder is not alone in this thought.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, he's not alone in this thought. He's very upset. And he's even looking at this issue of courting Black males. I mean, he just wants to have a conversation with is the president amenable, as he is a leader, as he has met with other presidents on major issues of rights, humanitarian rights, as well as civil rights.
And look, you're right. It's not just an issue that Mr. Stevie Wonder has, right? As you know, we've met with civil rights leaders multiple times, the president himself, the vice president as well, and have sat in rooms listening to them and listening to their concerns, and also taking in their feedback. So we've taken this very seriously. Very seriously. That's why we've taken the actions that we've had throughout the past almost 3 years in this administration. That's why we're going to continue to be vocal about the importance of making sure that we keep a door of opportunity for communities. That's why when you think about his economy, what he's put forth on his agenda and policy, when you think about all the policies that he's put forth, there's always been equity at the center of that. So this is something he takes seriously. Again, I don't have anything to share about a meeting with Mr. Stevie Wonder, but obviously this is something that both the president, the vice president, and also the first lady takes incredibly seriously. And you see that. You see that in the actions that we have taken, whether it's policy actions, whether it's speaking out and speaking up about what we're seeing from Republicans, extreme Republicans on the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue, and what they are trying to do in taking away voting rights, or what we've seen from the Supreme Court justice in taking away certainly affirmative action, which we think is incredibly important. And we're going to continue to speak to that.